Hola, welcome back. Hope you've had a lovely half term and I'm really looking forward to getting to grips with everything again this half term. Please keep giving me feedback on what works well for you, what you'd like to see more of, what you'd like to see less of. That's what we're here for. Whatever works is what is the most important. My first suggestion is that before you even start today's lesson is that you skim back through the last half term and spend maybe a good half an hour going back over that work and just refreshing your memory what you've seen before. We will be going back over it a little, but it's a good way to just have a little warm up, okay? And the objective, as you can see from the title there, the objective of today's lesson is en el restaurante. We've seen this slightly, but we're going to go into more detail about how to order food and drink in a Spanish restaurant. Really useful for life, but it also brings some really important grammar to our learning here that's going to be particularly useful. Okay, so we're going to work through these activities today really slowly, and the first thing that we need to do is get the vocabulary right and understand what we're talking about. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background first of all. I think sometimes we take things for granted too much. So Spanish restaurants, you may or may not know that they tend to have tapas. That might well change with coronavirus, but people tend to share their food in Spanish restaurants. So you might choose a few different things that you can all pick from. They're tapas. So a few little plates that you might all share from, a few little dishes. Equally, they have what's called the menú del día. This was my favorite when I was in Spain, the menú del día, because it was very cheap, because there wasn't much to choose from. And you could have a primer plato, so that literally means a first plate or a first dish, a segundo plato, a second dish or a second plate, and postre, dessert. So we would call it starter, main course, and dessert. Although you'd find, interestingly, the starter may well be bigger than the main course in some cases. You need dessert, as I've mentioned, and the drinks that are available, all included in the price, and fairly big portions as well. So these are, you get bread, pan, agua, water, and vino, wine, or cerveza, or beer. Obviously not if you are too young. Okay, so let's get to grips with this vocabulary. It's really important that you say it out loud. Your brain is not going to learn it unless you keep repeating the language. So repeat after me. Albóndigas. Albóndigas. Saying it out loud in your head is okay, but saying it out loud is even better. Okay, albóndigas, meatballs, there they are. Okay, Spanish meatballs, that's one of their common items that might be on a menu. Albóndigas. Gambas al ajillo. Gambas is prawns, and ajo. Ajo is garlic, so prawns fried with garlic. Al ajillo. Let's practice that. Gambas al ajillo. Gambas al ajillo. And then you get croquettes. I love these. You can have them with ham, chicken, just tends to be sort of mashed up potato with something mixed in with it. Could be fish and wrapped in breadcrumbs and fried. Okay, so there's your croquettes, and you have them with, oh, that might be a bechamel sauce actually, which is a bit like a floury and milk sauce. And these are from atún. Easy to work out that one. Atún, tuna, yeah, same letters. So repeat, croquetas de atún. And this isn't like our ham at all. It's salted ham. They can last for ages, thinly sliced. It's known as serrano ham. That's the type of ham. So jamón serrano. Jamón serrano. Very salty, very tasty. Okay, keep repeating those. Keep testing yourself. How do you say meatballs? See if you can remember. How do you say prawns? Get someone else to test you. Keep going back and forth on that vocab. Do not move on to the next page until you are ready. Good. So I trust you've spent a good amount of time going over albóndigas, gambas, croquetas, and jamón. And you're ready to order your segundo plato. Y de segundo plato, the waiter might say, and for your main course, And you could ask for squid with potatoes. If you want to be sure that they're chips, you'd call them patatas fritas. But here you can see we've got squid rings with chips. Calamares con patatas. Calamares con patatas. Then you get quite a lot of meat on the menu in Spain. Here we have a filete, a fillet of pork. So that's the fillet of pork. You'll start learning about different cuts of meat and what each one looks like and what to expect when you order it. So filete de cerdo. So the word for pork, cerdo, is also the word for pig. Filete de cerdo. And then you move on to, this is chops of lamb chops. Now you notice that they're a lot smaller than the lamb chops in England. That's, sorry to say this, but it's true. That's because they tend to eat lamb a lot younger than we eat it in England as well. So it's a lot smaller. Sorry, I put you off. So here we go. Chuletas, chops, chuletas de of cordero, lamb. Cordero. So you could also point to the animal. There's a lamb and use the word cordero. The meat and the animal are the same word. Okay. Chuletas de cordero. And finally, we've got the tortilla. Now you'll have seen that word a lot and think that it's Spanish. It's not. That the tortilla that you sort of recognize as tortilla chips or tortilla wraps is a Mexican food. The word tortilla in Spanish means omelette. Okay, so tortilla, and here we have a champiñones, a mushroom omelette. Tortilla de, that little word is important and useful, of champiñones. Champiñones. So practice that main course a few times. Calamares con patatas, filete de cerdo, chuletas de cordero, tortilla de champiñones, and don't move on until you are ready. So you might be too full for pudding or dessert, whatever you call it, but maybe not, and that's postre, postre. So you'll be asked if you want postre, dessert. I was quite disappointed, I must admit, when I got to Spain, because I think the one thing that we are good at in England is our puddings. I've just had rhubarb crumble for tea. Well, unfortunately, they tend to just offer you fruit at the end of a meal. But if you are a little bit cheeky and want to ask them if they have helado, ice cream, they'll tend to just throw that in on the menu as well. You could have an ice cream instead. A flan is this creme caramel here. Flan. Melocotón, peach. Melocotón. Piña, pineapple, easy to remember, and fresa. So you can learn your fruits, but there's a few for you there. And don't forget to keep practicing that vocabulary. So repeat many times. Postre, el postre, el flan, melocotón, un melocotón, piña, la piña, una fresa, la fresa, las fresas. Okay, practice that vocab. Really make sure you learn it before you move on. And we remember, can you remember what pan was? I mentioned it earlier. El pan, bread. El agua, water. Y vino, wine, and cerveza, beer, lager. Okay, so you've got your menu sorted and you've learned it. If I wanted to, I could go through all of that in English and you could tell me what it all is in Spanish. We're ready to move on to the ordering. Good. Okay. Two verbs here, tomar and tener. Tomar, tener. What do they both mean? Yes, they both mean to have. Have a look at the little saying there at the side. It really explains the difference in Spanish a lot better than it would do in English. You can't have your cake and eat it. You literally can't have a cake because once you've ate it, it's gone. So to have something, tener means to possess. In Spanish, the verb tener is to possess. So I have a pen. Tengo un boli. I have a brother. Tengo un hermano. I have a cat. Tengo un gato. I have a cake. Tomo un pastel. Okay, tomo. Have as in ingest, to eat, to take. I've mentioned this a few times, but you're still making mistakes with it. When we're talking about food and drink, you use tomar. Think of it like the American to take. So the Americans might talk about to take a shower, to take a coffee, to take a sandwich, to take a break. Okay, so I'm just going to take a coffee, tomar un café. Tomo un café. It's a regular verb. So tomo, I take. Right, and the waiter will say to you, ¿Qué va a tomar? ¿Qué va a tomar? What are you going to have? What are you going to take? So we're not going to use the verb tener with food and drink. We're going to use the verb tomar. Tomo, tomas, toma. Tomamos, tomáis, toman. Voy a tomar. I am going to take. I am going to have with food. Okay, important point that. Okay, so in a restaurant, you might have a conversation where, first of all, you might ask for el menú, por favor. That means the set menu, not just the general menu with everything on it. You might ask for el menú, por favor. And then once you've had a chance to read it, the waiter will come over and ask you, ¿de primer plato qué va a tomar? And you might reply, voy a tomar, and pick one. Croquetas. You could say las croquetas, the croquettes, las gambas, las albóndigas, or el jamón. And then he'll ask, de segundo plato. He might repeat the whole sentence or not. You can say, voy a tomar, I am going to have, and pick one. Y de beber. And so they're asking you there what you want to drink, beber, to drink. They wouldn't ask you what you wanted for dessert until you've ate your starter and your main course, and when they come back they'll ask if you want dessert. So I'm going to pretend that I'm the waiter and you're going to order your starter, main course and drink, and I will leave a gap for you to practice. Hola. De primer plato, ¿qué va a tomar? Y de segundo plato, ¿qué va a tomar? Y de beber, you can just name the drink. Okay, and you can say please if you want to. The Spanish don't say please half as much as we do. They think we overuse it, but there's your word, por favor, por favor. My suggestion is that you practice that a few times and change your order and try and do it maybe without looking as well. Just a couple of other phrases that might come in useful. On the left hand side you've got the phrases from the waiter, and on the right hand side you've got phrases from the customer. So the waiter might ask, quiere postre, do you want dessert? Quiere comes from the verb querer, to want. Quiero, quieres, quiere, queremos, queréis, quieren. I want, you want, he wants, we want, you want, they want. Quiero, quieres, quiere, queremos, queréis, quieren. So you would reply quiero, sí quiero, or no, no quiero. So you could order sí quiero flan, or sí flan por favor, sí piña por favor, or you could be cheeky like I suggested and ask if they've got any ice cream. Is there? Hay helado, ice cream. Is there ice cream? Practice it out loud. It's even better than practicing it in your head. Write it out as well. A waiter will ask, algo más? Anything else? Anything more? Literally anything more. Algo más? No. Nada más, gracias. No. Nothing more, thank you. No. Nada más, gracias. In Spain, you'll notice that everybody in restaurants wishes everybody to enjoy their meal. Enjoy your meal. You've heard of bon appétit in French. This is the equivalent. The Spanish use que aproveche. Que aproveche. So that's used every time you see somebody who's starting a meal, or you might walk past somebody who's eating their dinner in a restaurant. They would normally say hello and say que aproveche. It literally means that you get the most out of your meal. Que aproveche. And you might ask the waiter at the end of your meal, me trae la cuenta, por favor. We recognize por favor as please. We recognize the word the. We know that this is to me. So So you bring to me the bill, please. Yeah, comes from the word count, to count things. So practice that. Me trae la cuenta, por favor. If you're finding the me trae a bit tricky, just remember la cuenta, por favor, the bill, please. Me trae la cuenta, por favor. This comes from the verb traer, to bring. It's irregular. Traer. Traigo, traes, trae. Traemos, traes, traen. Okay. Traer, to bring. Useful phrases. If I were you at this point, I'd go back and practice the role play a little and include a couple of these phrases in it before we move on. Have a little bit of a break, and then we're going to move on to complaints. Okay, so this slide shows you how to use this little ending, this prefix. A prefix is a group of letters that you put on the end of a word, and this prefix is ísimo, and it means really, really, and the Spanish stick it on the end of an adjective. So pick it, most adjectives, not all. So pick one. Grande. Grande becomes grandissimo. So instead of it just being big, it's really, really big. Ísimo. Try that. Ísimo. It does change the ending. So if you're describing something feminine, not female, something that's feminine in gender, it will be grandissima. And if it's plural, grandissimos or grandissimas. Now you can stick the ísimo onto most adjectives. So let's take the adjective delicious. Delicioso. Delicioso. And we drop that final vowel and we stick on the ísimo. So delicioso becomes deliciosissimo. So if you're really enjoying your food, you might be able to say deliciosissimo. Now I've mentioned that it changes. If it's describing something masculine, like for example, let's look at our menu, el jamón, it will be deliciosissimo. But if it was feminine, like chuleta, a chop, you're eating a chop, una chuleta, it will be deliciosissima. Okay, equally, if it's plural, so if it's more than one, so you might be talking about the squid, los calamares, the squids, deliciosísimos. And if it's feminine plural, so chuletas, or we'll pick another example, the croquettes or the prawns, my favorite, gambas would be deliciosísimas, deliciosísimas. What I want you to do with this table then, look here, we've got the lamb is cordero, masculine singular, is delicious. The prawns are, so we've got is, estar, and are. And it's prawns as, so gambas, deliciosísimas. You are agreeing the adjective with the noun, and you are changing the verb depending on whether it's singular or plural. So the lamb is delicious, really, really delicious, and the prawns are delicious, really, really delicious. So with las croquetas, would it be las croquetas está or las croquetas están? The croquettes is or the croquettes are? Good. Are. Las croquetas están. And then which ending are we going to choose for delicious? We could choose croquetas, plural, feminine. Deliciosísimas. Deliciosísimas. So you're going to go through this table, and if you can't type in here, just write it on a piece of paper and include it in the photo that you send me. Right, and you're working with ísimo. That's the kind of thing that's adding quality to your work. It's the kind of thing that would be graded grade 6 and above. These little extras go a long, long way. To see you using that in your work is going to get you better grades. So you might want to start working with ísimo, ísima, ísimos, and ísimas. Okay, another little grammar stop here. You have seen this before, but it's always good to go back over things again. This is the verb estar. Estar, you can see it's an infinitive because it ends in AR, so it means to something, to be. Okay, to be. So it's I am you are, he, she, it is, we are, you are, they are. Now, there are two verbs for to be. You've seen ser, soy, eres, es, somos, soy, son. You've seen that verb, but we're not using that one at the moment. Don't want to confuse you, but estar is a verb that means to be with impermanent ideas. So, for example, I am sad, I am happy. Okay, estoy triste, estoy contento. It's an impermanent idea. So if you were to talk about the food is good, you'd have to say, you'd have to think of that as an impermanent idea. Está bueno, está bueno. Okay, I'm not talking about it being, well, you know, a good person. I'm talking about it being good and tasty at that moment. So you would use the verb estar. If it was bad, it would be estar malo. So because you're talking about the food in the restaurant, you'd be talking about está, it is, or están, they are. They're the two that we're going to use. Notice the accents. Accents matter. Make sure you use them in your work. And repeat this verb a few times as well. Estoy, estás, está, estamos, estáis, están. Chanting it will be one way of helping you learn it, but the key one there is it is, they are. Está, están. So here you can see that verb in use. El plato está sucio. And the picture helps you work out the meaning. El plato, the plate, is, looking at the picture, sucio must mean dirty. It means dirty. El plato está sucio. Keep practicing, keep repeating out loud. El vaso, glass, está, is roto. Roto. Looking at the picture, we can see it's broken. El vino, the wine. Está is malo. Malo. Thumbs down, it's bad. It's gone off, it's bad wine. And finally, we've got a thermometer there showing that it's low temperature, so it's too cold. And we've got meat, la carne. La carne está fría. La carne está fría. This is what the waiter might reply. Lo siento, I'm sorry. Lo siento. Aquí tiene aceite. Here you have oil, a spoon, another glass. Okay, that's examples of what the waiter might say. Just having a look at other issues and problems that you might have. We've got, obviously, these items, a cuchillo, a knife, cuchillo, cuchillo, cuchara, spoon. So we've got cuch on the table, we've got cuchillo, knife, cuchara, spoon in the middle. See that verb tener is to have. You have something on your fork, don't you? Tenedor is a fork, helps you hold it. Un tenedor, tenedor. Okay, other complaints, there is no hay, there is, no hay, there isn't. Aceite, oil. Spanish will often use oil, vinegar and salt on their salads. They like to do their own at the table. Aceite. Vinagre, vinegar and sal. No hay sal. Very rare that you see pepper on the table in Spain. You'd have to ask for that if you want it. So they're the problems. Okay. So this is your written task 2, and I'd like you to fill in the answers here on what you hear. So I'm going to hold a conversation in a restaurant in Spain, and you need to write down in English what is ordered for the first course, second course, what drink, what dessert, and the problem that there is for the waiter. Okay, so conversation number 1. Hola, hola, el menú, por favor. Aquí tiene. ¿Qué quiere de primer plato? Customer. Las gambas, por favor. Y de segundo, el filete de cerdo. Y de beber, agua, por favor. Y de postre, voy a tomar el flan. Camarero, sí. El plato está sucio. Lo siento. Aquí tiene otro plato. You can listen to that as many times as you want, rewind, and then move on to conversation number 2. Hola. Hola. De primer plato quiero el jamón, por favor. Y de segundo, la tortilla de champiñones. De beber un vino blanco. Y de postre quisiera fresas. Muy bien. Camarero, sí, hay un problema. La carne está fría. Lo siento. Ahora se lo cambio. And conversation number 3. Hola, ¿qué va a tomar? Customer. Bueno, de primer plato, las gambas, por favor. De segundo plato, los calamares con patatas. Y de beber quisiera cerveza. Y de postre voy a tomar... ¿hay helado? Sí, pues un helado de vainilla, por favor. Camarero, sí, hay un problema. No hay vinagre. Lo siento, aquí hay vinagre. La cuenta, por favor. Aquí tiene. Adiós. So fill in English just a little word in each of those boxes. If you can't do it on the PowerPoint, do it straight onto a piece of paper and send me the photo. Phew. Right, bet you're tired. I am. You've been doing really well. And hopefully you've been rewinding this a bit and going back over and practicing, and you're on to your final task now. So on your piece of paper, you're going to end up with something that looks very similar to this. You're going to write out a dialogue between the camarero, the waiter, and the cliente, the customer. Here they've used 2 different colours. You could just use the left and right hand of your page. And again, whenever we come to do an activity like this, we stay right off Google because 1, there's no point, 2, it makes our life harder, and 3, you don't learn anything. So use the vocabulary from today. The whole point about today's lesson is that you keep practicing the vocabulary from today. Don't suddenly come up with some food that, you know, roast chicken or tiramisu, right? Don't. Just go for the vocabulary that we've got today. Reuse the vocabulary from the problems as well. This is all about practicing what you've been taught. If you want it to be fancy, if you want it to be good, then I would suggest that you put in quite a few different problems. Talk about me hace falta, I need, that's a good phrase. Add ísimo or ísima. Talk about something being dirty, está sucio. We could really show off and say some things are dirty, están sucios. So there's quite a few ways that you can, you know, advance your vocabulary and use advanced Spanish without moving away from the vocabulary from today's lesson. Use tomar correctly, use estar correctly, use ísimo, ísima, ísimos, ísimas. Use that phrase, I need, me hace falta, and all of that will result in a really good mark. So when you hand in your work, it's 3 written tasks. Look at the PowerPoint as you go through, and we will meet on Friday for a Zoom. I am just going to have to book a slot, and I think it's going to be 10 a.m, but I will confirm via ePraise once that meeting has been booked, and we'll have a little 20-minute quiz. So make sure you've looked over today's lesson before I see you again on Friday. We'll have a little quiz together on Friday. So And bring any questions that you've got, any problems that you've got, any questions, you can bring them up in the lesson either via the chat or just by talking to us as well. Okay, so see you then. Take care. Adios. Che approveche.